today.
Yeah, of course. And I've gotten questions from students from that class already, so that's always good to see.
Yeah, they're gonna be contacting you if they do as I've instructed.
Hmm.
I just got you extra work, so
It's
uh,
okay.
so let's see. Everybody, today we will have our guest speaker, Melissa Orozco from the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. She'll be speaking to you all in a couple of minutes. I just wanted to get through a little bit of classroom business, mention a couple of things that I wanted you to keep a note on, and then we'll just let Melissa have the remainder portion of the class to present and ask questions. Okay. So first, the videos that we've been, our lecture videos, for some reason, haven't been transferring from where we keep them at the university to Gacho Space. So if that doesn't change, if they can't fix that in the next day, I'm gonna have to go to a different platform, possibly YouTube, to upload the videos, so we can have a private channel where you can view your lectures. It's been brought to my attention by a couple of you that can't attend every lecture because of other responsibilities, and so this is really a problem that I'm trying to figure out a solution for you, but it might take a day or so for those videos to be available. If I have to go a different route, I'm going to email you, and you'll have the links to the videos in those emails as well. Okay. And I think that's pretty much all I had for class announcements. Um, does anybody have any questions before we hand it over to Melissa?
Yes.
Yes, Rena.
Sorry, I couldn't find chapter 3 that you said.
Chapter 3 I have not made available. I haven't posted it. It's going to develop into that conversation next week.
Okay,
So
okay,
I just
sorry.
decided that since we have a guest speaker in financial aid with us this week, I didn't want to confuse everybody with the conversations.
Okay,
So we'll roll from financial aid into chapter 3 next week. Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for keeping an eye on Irina. Okay. All righty. It's all yours, Melissa.
Hi, Mario. Can you allow me to share my screen? Okay, awesome. Okay, can you guys see it okay? Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. So today I'll be giving a presentation with a lot of information, navigating financial aid and resources at UCSB. I know that everyone has different financial aid situations. So some of the information may not apply to you, but hopefully I do provide some resources that you might be interested in. That's something to know. Okay, so on today's agenda, I'm just going to be introducing myself, giving you a little bit of my background. I'm going to be talking about financial aid services, so you become familiar with them. I'll be talking about loans because that's my expertise, managing student loans if you're first-time loan borrowers, additional resources at UCSB and our financial aid office, and then the end, hopefully we have time for questions. Okay, so to begin, my name is Melissa Orozco. I'm a UCSB alumni. I graduated just last June. I graduated with a BA in Environmental Studies with a focus in sociology. And I'd like to talk about a little bit about how I got to work at the Office of Financial Aid. So when I was a first-year student, I was the first one in my family to, come to college. So I had no idea, about financial aid. I just did my FAFSA application, and when it came to, accepting loans and figuring out my fees, how I was going to pay for my fees, what I did, I give these presentations for students to not do this, is that I accepted all my loans without even budgeting or, you know, um, thinking if I had to accept them. So I accepted my full subsidized loan and my full Perkins loan. And luckily, with all the grants and loans that I had, I was able to pay for my first year. My second year, I knew that this wasn't a smart move of mine, especially because I was going to get my first job. I was going to move off campus, rent a place for the first time, assign a lease. And these new things, they were very overwhelming for me because I was first generation immigrant student with no knowledge on, navigating higher education. So what I did is that I got my first job, and I used to work around 20 to 30 hours every week my second year. And I would work overnight shifts every single week from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. No, 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. So you can see that wasn't a very sustainable lifestyle. I really needed to, balance my work life and, my education. So what better way than to work for the financial aid office where I could gain a lot of knowledge. So I quit that job, and my third year, my second year, since I was working so much, I didn't take out any loans. But my third year, I started working for the financial aid office, and I became a peer advisor from 2017 to 2019. And working at this office just really helped me gain a lot of financial wellness, practices, right? I began to budget, and I just became very knowledgeable of financial aid, and I want to share that knowledge with students. So I graduated, I took out loans my first year, my third and fourth year, and I took out loans that did not accrue any interest. So I took out 15K in student loans, and I'm currently repaying them. So I just want to give you guys a little bit background about that. And because I took out only loans that were subsidized, I graduated with no interest accrued on my loans. And I'll talk a little bit more about that further. So the first thing I want to mention is it's always important to submit a financial aid application every year that you're going to be in school. So for next academic year, the financial aid applications open up October 1st. So make sure that you do this the sooner the better. You don't want to wait until the last day because these priority deadlines are very important. The deadline for both the FAFSA application and DREAM application is March 2nd, 2021. So if you can just do the application once it opens up, you get it out of the way and you're set, right? You're not going to do it late. So I did right here the requirements for each. I hope that at this time you guys have submitted a financial application, so you're aware which one you're eligible to submit. If you have questions about it, you can always call our office and we can talk to you about which one you would be eligible to apply. Next thing I want to talk about are the funding sources. So hopefully you guys have talking about your award letters. If you did submit a financial aid application, you know that we use 2018 tax information. And so when you get your award letter, your funding is composed of different sources, right? The first, if you have UCSB grants, you're gonna see it comes from the institution, right? So they're university grants. If you have federal aid, like the federal Pell Grant, federal subsidized loan, federal unsub, or plus loan, this is federal aid that comes from the government. State aid can be Cal Grant if you're getting Cal Grant A, B, or the stipend. If you're getting a CalVet waiver, these funds come from the state of California for California residents. And then there's always private scholarships. So if you have applied to any external scholarships, obviously those come from the private agencies that you applied for. So all of these four funding sources make up your award letters, may make up your award letters. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about our financial aid website. So to see your official award letter, you would log into My Aid Status. Once you see your award letter and you have any questions, right now we're currently working remote. So what we do is we have a join the line option. And basically you just click on this and you put your name, PER number, and phone number. And when you sign in within a couple of minutes, when you're next on the queue, we give you a call back. So we're still, calling students. So if you have questions, feel free to join the line here. Okay, now I'm going to talk about My Aid Status. If you guys have logged in, you'll see that there's different tabs on the top. And My Aid Status has a lot of information that's going to help you manage your expenses every quarter. Hopefully everyone has their official words letters already. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what's on the dashboard. So here you're going to see a document section. If you were selected for verification this summer, hopefully you've already submitted all those documents. Every year when you submit a financial aid application, a percentage of students get selected for for verification. This means that we might need to verify the information that you put on your DREAM application or FAFSA application. And you have to provide documents, right? When you're all set, you submit everything, you should see a green check mark. If you guys have documents that are requested, please feel free to reach out to our office so we can assist you with that. The next section that you're going to see there is the satisfactory academic progress section. So you might be asking, like, what is this? What are these numbers that I'm seeing? So our financial aid office has, you have to meet SAP, right, in the academic year. To meet SAP, you have to maintain a GPA of 2.0 and a PACE of 67%. PACE means the units that you completed over the units that you attempted. And so, you guys are new students. So right now, you guys are not going to have a lot of information here. You guys are all satisfactory. At the end of the academic year, we're going to look at all the quarters of attendance and see if you met the minimum GPA and if your PACE is above 67%. If you met those two requirements, then you're going to be set for the next incoming academic year. If maybe you didn't do so well 2 quarters, especially with everything going on right now, you didn't do as well as you expected, and you didn't meet one of the requirements, you might have to do a satisfactory academic progress appeal. This appeal will allow you to explain, why you didn't do so well. And based on the appeal, you're going to get set to probation. And it's important to do these appeals because without an appeal, you are not eligible for financial aid, right? But I know this is a lot of information, but right here, you're gonna keep track of your cumulative GPA every quarter, and we also show you your PACE. That way, it's very transparent, you're knowledgeable about your status every quarter. We also notify you via email if you do have to do a SAP appeal. So that's something to keep in mind. Another section on the dashboard, and I didn't put a picture here, is the consent to release. So this is very important. If you're going to have a third party, such as your mom, your sister, a sibling, calling to the financial aid office about your financial aid information, your financial information is confidential and protected by the government. It's a law, right? And so to give third parties your consent, you have to log into the dashboard and put the names of, sorry about that, put the names of who you want to give consent to and create a passphrase. So if you put down your parents' name, anytime they call, we're gonna ask for the passphrase, and then we'll be able to talk about your financial aid. So that's important to know if you are going to have people calling in regards to your financial aid. So moving forward, my aid status, so there's a lot of different tabs up here, right? One of the most important tabs on here is the disbursements tab. The disbursements tab will let you know what is the status of your aid, right? So it allows you to see your BARC balance, your scheduled disbursements, so this is the incoming aid that you have, maybe all the grants and loans that you have accepted, and what your remaining balance will be. Right here on the destination, it'll tell you, hey, this has dispersed already to the BARC office. For your loans, if there is a hold, for example, you haven't done your loan requirements, it'll say you have pending requirements to do. If you are unsatisfactory and you haven't met your SAP, it'll tell you, hey, you're not meeting SAP, you have to complete an appeal, right? So you'll see a message there, but as long as it says Spark, it'll say it's been all dispersed, you're good to go. Something that I recommend for students to do is to set up direct deposit through BARC. BARC is the account where you're going to get billed every quarter. If you guys log into your BARC right now, you should see your fall quarter fees already on there. Something to keep in mind is that we won't disperse aid until 10 days before the quarter begins. So you might see estimated aid coming in, right, on your BARC account. If you set up your direct deposit, if you have a refund coming in, it'll go directly to your bank account. If you don't set up your direct deposit through Gaucho eBill, you'll get it as a check. And most students like direct deposit because you get it quicker than waiting for a check to arrive. So that's something to keep in mind. So moving forward, we're going to talk about loans now. This is my favorite part. As I mentioned earlier, everyone has different award letters, so I want to touch base on all the different types of loans available to students. First, we have federal direct student loans. So if you submitted a FAFSA application, these are the loans that you would see in your award letter. So we have two different types of federal student loans. The first one is a subsidized loan. So this loan, I consider it the nicer loan because the government pays the interest, right? So no interest is accrued while you're in school and enrolled in at least half time, and half time is 6 units. So if you're thinking of taking out loans, always take out the subsidized loan first. The interest will start accruing after your grace period is over. And by grace period, I mean that this is a period after you graduate until you actually have to start repaying your loans. So it gives you time to, let's say you're looking for a job after you're graduating, you don't have to repay right away, right? Because you'll have this grace period. The interest rate for both of these loans actually is the lowest it has ever been in 10 years, which is great. It's 2.75%. It's fixed, and this is going to be the interest rate for the lifetime of these loans. For example, me, I took out these loans throughout my college, but the interest rate was 5%. And that's significantly higher than these interest rates for the incoming year. And so the unsubsidized loan, the interest does accrue from the first disbursement. So that's something to keep in mind. It has the same grace period and the same interest as a subsidized loan. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how interest accrues in a further slide, just because I get that question a lot. Another thing to know is that federal interest rates differ year to year. So the Department of Education will release new interest rates every summer, and this usually depends on how the economy is doing. So as you know, right now the economy isn't doing so well, which is why interest is so low, right? So it's a good time to accept federal student loans. Moving forward, I'm going to talk about the Federal Direct Plus Loan. So some of you may have a plus loan. If you're a dependent student, you may have a Parent Plus loan offered in your award letter. So this is also a federal loan that your parents can apply for. The interest for this loan is 5.30% and it's fixed. It's also unsubsidized, so that means that interest does accrue from the first disbursement. There's two different plus loans. If you guys are dependent students and you're third year, fourth year, you're only going to be offered the Parent Plus loan. The Graduate Plus loan is only for graduate students. So this loan is different than your subsidized and unsubsidized because your parent has to apply for it, and they go through a credit check. So they would go to studentaid.gov, click on apply for plus loan, and it checks their credit. If they have adverse credit history, meaning that they have, recent bankruptcies or defaulted loans, they might get denied, right? So you get the decision right away. If they do, they can either pursue an endorser, or we can talk about how you may get offered additional unsubsidized loan, a student loan, if your parents are denied. So if you have questions about that, we can talk about it later after the presentation. Okay, so moving forward, now we're going to talk about institutional loans. So there are two different types of institutional loans. We have the UCSB loan. It's subsidized, meaning that no interest is going to accrue until the end of the grace period. The grace period for this loan is 9 months and the interest rate is 5%. So this loan, the reason why we created this loan, UCSB, is because before there used to be a Perkins loan and it was a federal loan, but the government defunded it, so it does not exist anymore. So what UCSB did is replicated that loan as an institutional loan. So it has the same grace period and interest rate that the Perkins loan used to have. Then we also have the Dream loan. This one also does not accrue any interest until the end of the grace period. The grace period is 6 months, and this one mirrors federal loans, so you see why the interest rate is also 2.75%. Okay, now we're going to talk about private student loans. So there are numerous reasons why a student would take out a private student loan. Maybe you're an independent student and the federal loans offered to you are not enough to meet your expenses. Maybe your parent does not want to take out a plus loan due to your financial situation. So you have to, take out a private student loan to pay for your education. So what the UC system has done is that they created a UC lender list, and some of the names here, and this is how the list looks. Some of these names might seem familiar to you, like Sally Mae, Wells Fargo, Discover. So it'll list different student loans, and you can filter them out based on if you want fixed interest rates, variable. You can also switch the interest rate to see how high it is, how low it is, the minimum amount that you can take out. So I always tell students that yes, these are the loans on the UC lender list, but it's not all the loans that you can apply for. It's a way to begin your research if you are thinking of accepting a private student loan. And so private student loans are very different than federal loans because they offer both fixed and variable interest rates. Most often, what they do is that they run a credit check on the borrower, so the student. And as college students, a lot of us students have not established credit, right? So you might need a co-signer, and this is oftentimes the case that I see. The interest rates vary by lender. I've seen interest rates for private loans up to 8% to 12% even. So it's good to do research and apply for multiple. The interest rates they're not subsidized, so interest rate is accrued while you're in school. That's something to note. One of the benefits about private student loans is, if you're in a situation where, it's summertime, you only need one class, maybe you didn't do the satisfactory academic appeal, private student loan lenders don't look at SAP statuses or that you have to be enrolled in at least a minimum of 6 students. So we're able to certify a private loan for you if you're not meeting these 2 requirements, right? So sometimes, it depends case by case, but private student loans can be an option for you to pay for, your educational expenses. So moving forward, managing student loans. So if many of you are first-time loan borrowers, I think this slide is super important because I think it's good to become familiar with the repayment process and what it means to accept loans. I find it that a lot of students neglect and don't think about their student loans at all while they're in school. They just push it to the side. They're going to worry about it after graduation. But I think it's a sustainable way to manage your expenses when you already know who your loan servicer is, you know how much you've taken out. So the first thing, my first advice is to know who your loan servicer is and make an account with them. So for federal loans, you're going to get assigned a third-party loan servicer. So every student gets assigned a different one. Some common ones are OSLA, that's who I'm with. There's Great Lakes, there's Navient, there's Gradient. So basically, you go to studentaid.gov, you click on the loan servicer URL that's on there, and you make an account with them. And that's it. You know who your loan servicer is, who you're going to start making your payments after graduation. For institutional loans, UCSB has partnered with Heartland ECSI. So if you're taking out your UCSB loan and or your dream loan, just know that your loan servicer is going to be Heartland ECSI. You make an account with them. These loan servicers are very good at reaching out to students, so they will email you. For private loans, your loan lender is your loan servicer. So if you took out a loan with Wells Fargo, that's who you're going to be making your payments to. The next advice that I give students is borrow only what you need. So I learned this from my first year when I just borrowed my full subsidized and Perkins. I changed my mindset my 3rd year and 4th year. And so anytime that I would take out a loan and I would get a refund and I didn't need the money because I was working, I would cancel or reduce my student loans, right? So you're going to have the option to do that. We have a loan cancellation and reduction form. In the case that you don't need your loan, you can go ahead and cancel it. The advice I also give is, if possible, to pay the interest on your unsubsidized loans while in school. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this in another slide just because I do like to go into detail about what interest accruing looks like during an academic year. The third thing is, before graduating, meet with a financial aid representative. So let's say maybe you didn't focus on your student loans or didn't know who your loan servicer was, and it's graduation time, maybe it's a month before you graduate. Feel free to reach out to a financial aid representative, talk about different repayment plans. If you have not, gotten a job and you're almost graduating, you want to prepare to not miss any payments on your loans, right? You're going to have your grace period, but it's also important to, prep for the best and also prep for the worst. So there are a lot of repayment plans. Some of these are income-driven repayment plans. So if you don't have, if you haven't secured a job, you can set up an income-based repayment plan where they look at your income, right? And so you provide, tax information saying, hey, this is how I'm making. If you're not making any money, you can have minimum payments that are $0 or even $5, right? Because it's based on income. So these are the things to, be proactive about to prevent going into getting your loans in default status, which means that you've missed multiple payments, right? Another thing that a financial aid representative can do, and I do this with students, is to calculate your monthly minimum payments. So I usually have an Excel that does the calculations for you. Let's say are taking out 7,000 and you want to see in how much time you can pay that, how much interest is going to accrue, and 3 years, X years. We can definitely look at that as well. Okay, so this is my favorite slide, and it's very math oriented, but it gives you a perspective of how interest is accrued. So I have an example here, and to give you an idea of that. So interest accrues daily on loans, but it doesn't accrue on the interest that it's previously accrued. It's just daily interest, right? And so the example that I'm giving is an unsubsidized loan. Let's say you take out your unsubsidized loan of $2,000. The interest rate is 2.75, so in decimal it's 0.0275. So I'm just going to go through the formula, but you don't have to follow. I basically, divide the interest rate over 365 days to find out daily how much is accrued. And then I multiply that by my loan, right? The loan amount is 2,000. So we can see how much is accrued on a day on my loan. It's 15 cents. It seems like, very minimal amount. You multiply it by 30 days to see how much interest would accrue in 1 month. And that's $4.52. So if you see there, that's not a very large amount. And I always give the tip to students, if you can, pay your interest while you're enrolled in school. So every month, if you can make a payment of $4.50, this would greatly benefit you when you graduate. And the reason I say that is because something called capitalization happens when you graduate. And this means, the Department of Ed knows that you're graduating. They're going to capitalize all the interest that's been accruing while you're at UCSB and add it to the loan that you have accepted, right? And so then after that, your interest is going to accrue on the loan that you accepted plus the interest that they added. So you can see how you would be paying more on your loan. There's a way to prevent that. Make the payments while you're in school, pay the interest off. By the time that you graduate and capitalization happens, nothing's going to get added to your loan because you've already paid it off. So you're going to have just the 2,000 that you're going to start repaying. So that's why I tell students, if they can, pay off the interest while in school. Again, you don't have to. Now to see, a different perspective on this is in 365 days, you would accrue $55 in a year, right, in interest. So if you do not pay it and you're okay with just, your loan being capitalized and it's okay, it just gives you an idea of how interest is accrued daily. So moving forward, I've talked a lot about loans. Now it's about budgeting, right? I really emphasize, do not borrow what you don't need. So it's always a good idea. And this budget planner is found in our financial aid website. It's always a good idea to plan out how much you actually need, right? Based on your income, if you guys are going to be working, on the grants that you're receiving, the loans you're accepting, maybe your parents might help you a bit, or you have savings. You'll see your expenses, right? Your tuition, healthcare, and all these expenses can be found. Some of them can be found in your BARC account. Some of them would be, rent, food, and you'll see, your income total. So something like this will help you think, right? Like, how much do I actually need to accept? Every quarter is 3 months. Is my refund enough to pay rent for those 3 months of the quarter until I get my financial aid again? So something like this can help you. Again, you can call our office and we can budget with you. So the next thing that you guys might see on your award letters is work study. So this is a common question, right? What is work study? Do I get the $2,000 offered? Do I get the $3,000 up front? So I want to explain what work study is because I think there's a misconception. Work study is a need-based form of financial aid that you earn through on or some off-campus employment jobs, and you receive as a regular check. So let's say you get a job on campus, you're going to get paid bi-weekly, right? And so work study, if you have work study and you're using it, your paycheck, some of the funds your employer is paying them and some are coming from your work study fund, right? So it's just basically from where the funds are going. The reason why work study, a lot of jobs require work study eligibility is because you're a better financial deal to your employer. That means they don't have to pay 100% of what you're making, right? And if this is something that you're interested in using, I'm going to share the slides with Mario later, so you guys can have the URLs, but I connected it here. If you haven't heard of Handshake, this is where departments post jobs. This is how I found my peer advisor job at the financial aid office. So you guys can take a look at that and see what jobs are being offered. Obviously, they are going to be offered remote, so they're going to be a little bit different, but there will be jobs available. If you do not use your work study throughout the year, it's just going to remain an offered status in your award letter. Nothing's going to happen. You don't have to decline it. You only use it if you're accepting it and using it for your job. You will have the option of converting your work study to additional loan eligibility. So let's say you know you're not going to use work study. You can turn in a work study conversion form where we give you more loans. And the loan that you receive depends on your eligibility, right? So if you've already received your full maximum federal student loans, you might get more Parent Plus loan. If you haven't, then you might get more federal loans. It just depends on your, situation. So moving forward, I added a slide. The last time I gave this presentation, I had questions about this, and I realized that this is important information. So fee payment deadlines. Every quarter, you're gonna have a fee payment deadline a month before the quarter begins. So for fall quarter, the deadline is September 15th, 2020 at 4 p.m. Oh, and I just realized a typo. This should be 2021. Sorry about that. But it's basically every 15th, right? Winter quarter, spring quarter. If you have grants and loans that you accepted, these will automatically be dispersed into your BARC accounts, okay? If you're gonna be paying out of pocket, it's important to note these deadlines so you pay on time and your classes are not dropped. So yeah, those are the deadlines. I also wanted to mention census dates. Last time I gave this presentation, I realized this was important information for students to have. So census date, every quarter, it's about 2.5 weeks into the quarter, there's going to be a census date. And this means that Registrar takes a screenshot of the units that you're enrolled to make sure that you're in full time or your enrollment, right? If you're in full time, then that's great. None of your aid changes. If for whatever reason you're enrolled in less than full time and you're a Cal Grant or Pell recipient, we're going to have to reduce your grant to match your enrollment. So let's say you're getting your full-time Cal Grant, but at census you were at 6 units, that means half, right? So we would have to reduce your Cal Grant by half. And so that would create a bill back in your BARC account. The reason is because we gave you full-time status financial aid, right? But you weren't in full-time by census, so we have to reduce your aid. So these deadlines are important, and we do notify students before the census dates happen. Our financial aid office will send an email. If you're a financial aid recipient, keep an eye on census date. On our financial aid website, we also post the date. We haven't released it for fall quarter, but like I mentioned, you would get emailed about it. There's no appeal process for this, so it's super important, right? If you maybe dropped a class the day before and you're trying to appeal it, unfortunately, we cannot do that because these screenshots that we take are, strict. There's no way to go about that. So just make sure that you're in full-time status by the census date. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about resources at UCSB. We're going to talk about one-on-one appointments, research in our financial aid office, and then resources around campus. So first of all, we have one-on-one appointments via Zoom or phone call. These are appointments that I give just because I like promoting financial wellness and sharing the knowledge that I've been giving you guys now in this presentation, you know, in regards to student loans, budgeting, loan repayment. If let's say it's your senior year, you want to meet with someone to talk about loan repayment plans, even loan forgiveness. You can always set up a one-on-one appointment with I or the direct loan analyst, so our emails are on here. Moving forward, we have Scholarship Universe. I believe that we notified students via email about this new tool that we have. It's a platform called Scholarship Universe, and it helps students find and apply for additional scholarships. And these are external scholarships. And what it does is that it matches you with scholarships based on your answers on your financial aid applications, your residency status, your GPA, even your college. So they're not exclusive to only your financial need, right? These are just external that can look at different criteria. So if you log in and all the questions are answered, it'll tell you how many scholarship matches you have. And, you know, take advantage of this tool because, you know, this is money that you would be missing out on if you don't apply to them. I met with a student recently that applied to 43 scholarships. And, you know, that's great. That's a lot of scholarships. So he has a higher chance of getting thousands of dollars extra that he wouldn't have received if he didn't use this tool. There are deadlines on there. It might take a couple of months for you to get a notification if you got the scholarship or not. But what happens when you get, if you win a scholarship is that we'll get that information and we'll add it to your award letter. So what does that mean, right? You know, do I get the scholarship up front? Do I, you know, what does that mean when you win a scholarship? That means is that we'll apply it into your award letter, but we'll reduce some of the loans that you're being offered, right? Because we can award you more than your cost of attendance for the academic year. So if your cost of attendance for the academic year is $34,170 and you get a scholarship for $3,000, to fit that into your award letter, we'll reduce a loan by $3,000 and replace it with a scholarship. Okay, so if you have questions about that, we can talk about that after the presentation. Another tool, and I don't know if Mario has spoken about this, is the Snack Center at UCSB. So this is the Student Needs Advising Center. It's new, and it's basically a center to find resources at UCSB. And this screenshot that I have here to the right, I just took a screenshot from their website, but it's different things like for food insecurity, right? Food pantries, you would click on there and it would list all the food pantries around UCSB. It talks about CalFresh, and I'll talk about that more in our further slide. I know I mentioned it here, but I have a more detailed slide. Also, there's volunteer opportunities to get involved. If you want to be more involved with AS, with being a CalFresh advocate, with, you know, different organizations on campus, this is the square that you would click. If you know, right now, because we are remote and you don't have access to internet, they also have a technology and access section where you can find out which companies are offering free Wi-Fi to students. I know during spring quarter when the whole school went remote, they were also offering lending laptops to students that didn't have laptops. So just, you know, keep an eye out for this great resource at UCSB. It's new. The Snack Center is located next to John Bayous at the Youth Center. But you know, since we're not here, they're still available, they're still open, and they're practicing social distancing, so check them out. So CalFresh. So I want to talk about this resource because it's super popular at UCSB. I know I had it. And basically what it is a food nutrition assistance program. It's EBT for students. And those that are eligible, there's different criteria. For example, you have to be 18 years old. You have to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. You have to be eligible for financial aid. So the criteria, you can go ahead and refer to the CalFresh, the Snack Center, and it'll list all the criteria. But basically what it is, you get a card and it's $194 per month, right? And you can use it at, you know, Trader Joe's, the Co-op, 7-Eleven, even the UCSB store. And so, you know, for food, and it'll save you a bunch of money in groceries. I got it my sophomore year and I never had to pay groceries because $194 every month was way more than I needed for one person. But for a whole academic school year, that's $1,746 that you would get for groceries, which is super great. All you would have to do once you get it is renew it every 6 months. They just ask that, your income, you're still eligible for it. And luckily, we do have CalFresh advocates at UCSB. They have office hours. They're very proactive in helping students with the application process because there are documents that you need to submit. But they do offer remote service. So I added here the phone number and the email to set up like a Zoom meeting. And this is something that you guys can, even if you're eligible for it, you can apply for it even if you're home, right? Because you're still a student. And I really vouch for this because it really helped me when I was in college. Moving forward, I also want to talk about the financial crisis response team, especially right now. There's unprecedented times. We have a financial crisis response team that is a resource to assist students who are facing a financial crisis. And some of these situations can be, housing insecurity, food insecurity. Maybe you're having a rough time, and we don't want students not to have food. So you reach out to the crisis team, and they can give you some resources. Unforeseen financial expenses is a big one, especially with the whole pandemic. A lot of students have, maybe lost their jobs or had a reduction in income that's affecting their academics. So if you reach out to the financial crisis response team, they reply within 24 to 48 hours, and someone from the team will reach out to you, evaluate your situation and see how we can help, either with resources, even maybe a grant if it's your financial aid award letter. I like to talk about this because we don't want you guys to be in a situation where you're ever facing an emergency and you feel like there's no one that can help you. So we do have this great team that's has helped thousands of students. Moving forward, the last resource that I like to talk about is the Community Financial Fund grant program. So this is a team from the Associated Students at UCSB that hosts financial literacy workshops every quarter. And what they do is that they'll email students, hey, we have our workshops this quarter, and they send a past time for you to sign up and register for the workshop. This workshop over the past year or 2 years has become very popular, where they get like 500 requests within the first 5 minutes, and it's all filled up. I was never able to get in, but you can try every quarter. And basically they have workshops on investing, retirement, credit scores, auto loans, mortgages, things that you don't necessarily learn in your classes, but they have a group of students that lead these workshops. If you're able to get into this workshop and you attend, you take a financial literacy quiz and write a short essay about how to help you, you're eligible for a 320 grant just for attending. And I think this is one of the best programs because you're learning about financial aid and you're getting paid for it, basically. So if you do get those emails from AS, it's called the Community Financial Fund. I put the URL here, so once you receive my presentation, you'll be able to click on it and just find out more information about it. But definitely take advantage of this. It's super popular, but you'll be able to try every quarter if you don't get in. I think that is the last slide. So, I think this is my favorite time to open it up for questions.
Do any of you have questions for Melissa?
Yes.
Hey, Maya, what would you like to ask? Go for it.
So I do not have my official financial aid letter, and I don't know why, because I did email the financial aid and they said it would be ready early August. We're past early August now.
Yeah, no, this is a good question. We just recently released all official award letters. We were doing them on a rolling basis over the month of August. So you might have received it at a different time, but I would recommend that you contact our financial aid office or email us. There's multiple reasons why you might not have yours. It can be due to maybe verification documents that I mentioned earlier. If you were selected for verification, it could be because you haven't done your statement of legal residency with the registrar office. This is basically where you verify if you're a California resident or not. There's multiple reasons. So you can either message me and I can look into it. And yeah, I'll help you with that.
Okay, and then I have just a couple more questions.
Yeah, of course.
If you don't take all of your loan money, does FAFSA look at that the next year and take away, like, reduce your grants?
That's a good question. And no, your loans, if you don't accept them, they're just going to be in offered status the whole academic year. Nothing will happen. Next year, you're just going to get a new set of loans. So, yeah.
Okay. And then I think that was my last question.
Great. Thank you.
Rena has a question for you, Melissa.
Yeah, sorry, maybe my question is repetition, but the census day that you said, first of all, I don't know, is that the last day that we have to pay? And first, I don't know when the day is for the fall quarter. And then I want to know, for example, why should I be, for example, 12 units? I'm a full-time student by that time. If I want, for example, to drop my class after that, what will happen if I drop it before it?
Yeah, yeah, those are very good questions. So the fall quarter fee payment deadline is September 15th. Okay, so that's something to note. Census date is something different. Census date happens around, I'm gonna say 3 weeks into fall quarter. It's usually like the second week of October. Last year was October 18th. It changes every year, but we'll notify you about that deadline. It's also gonna be posted on our financial aid website, and you just wanna make sure that you're in full-time status if you're a Cal Grant and Pell Grant recipient, right? Because these grants will reduce if you're not a full-time student. If you drop after, your financial aid won't get affected, but I would still say contact our financial aid office if you are thinking of doing this, okay? We want to make sure that you don't get anything billed back. So if you are thinking of dropping below full-time, definitely contact our office.
Thank you, I understood. So census day is not the same as the last day of the dropping. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think there's a question on the chat. Oh yeah, so transaction details on BARC. So maybe this is like a BARC question, but if you have questions about what's on there, you can contact the BARC office right now. It should be, your tuition and campus-based fees, healthcare insurance if you have UCSB healthcare insurance. If you're in UCSB housing, you might see that on there. If you're not, then you would only see tuition, campus-based fees, and healthcare insurance. If you see a transaction that maybe you don't recognize or you don't know why you got charged for something, I would say contact a BARC representative or maybe financial aid if it's regarding financial aid, just to look further into this, what you're being charged for.
Are students are students currently being charged? And if they are, when does their financial aid kick in to take care of some of those charges?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now, your financial aid should be on BARC as estimated, right? And this lets BARC know this student has enough financial aid that's going to cover their fall expenses. Your financial aid will actually disperse 10 days before the quarter begins. So that's something to keep in mind. It'll be automatically dispersed, right? So if you're going to have a pending balance, maybe your aid is not covering your full fall fees, you might have to pay your fees by September 15th. Okay. I do see a question on here about CalFresh with the $190 a month. So it does roll over. And this is what I was saying, that, this was more than enough for me when I was in college. I would not spend something to $194 a month. So the next month when I would get $194, that means I had, over $250 on my CalFresh card. And maybe that month I could spend a little bit more on groceries. I could go to the UCSB store, and if I was studying at the library, I can buy food there.
Yeah, and you mentioned a great thing with the collaboration of food resources, right? It's more than $200 a month if you look into the extensions of those collaborations.
That's correct.
I think we had somebody else who was trying to ask a question before I interrupted. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I have a quick question. I read two types of Cal Grants. Cal Grant B and Cal Grant Stipend. I was wondering what the Cal Grant Stipend is.
Yeah, so There's two different types of Cal Grants available. Cal Grant A that just pays for your tuition, and you were eligible for Cal Grant B with the stipend. The stipend is supposed to go, help you for books and supplies. So that's just an extra amount that you were eligible to receive based on your, financial aid answers on your financial aid application.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have any other questions for Melissa? I know she gave us a lot of information to consider.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Regarding the subsidized loans, I kind of have a unique financial situation. I don't need to get into the weeds about it, but if I took out a subsidized loan, is there any penalty for early payment? Like if I took it out and then 3 months later, I can totally pay it off?
Yeah, no, not at all. If you take out $1,000 because you needed it, and then next month you pay it off, then that's it. You actually don't, you're not gonna owe anything. So there's no penalty for that. And
Okay.
you would pay it to your loan servicer, or you can also just cancel the loan with our financial aid office. If it hasn't been more than 120 days since you took out the loan, you can just submit a loan cancellation form. And what that will do is that we'll zero out the loan, let's say $1,000, and then you just get charged for it on your Bark account, and it would be, the amount that you had originally received, and you pay it through your Bark account. That way you don't have to contact your loan servicer at all.
A student
Okay,
just
great.
asked about. Oh, I'm sorry. You
No, that's all.
Okay, I'm sorry for jumping in. I think Brianna was asking about the middle class scholarship.
Yeah, this is a good question. So middle class scholarships currently are being added into award letters. So they have not been added. So if you are eligible for it, or you've received a message from CSAC, the California State Aid Commission, that you're eligible for it, we're still adding them. So your award letter might not be finalized, and it's subject to change once it's added.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So just to clarify, if fall quarter payments are due by September 15th, will financial aid be applied to Bark before that, or would it be like a refund situation?
Yes.
10 days before, so I believe the quarter starts like October 1st.
Yeah, that's a good question, and we get this all the time. That's why we post estimated aid on your Bark account. So if you see that, that's letting Bark know, like, hey, the student's gonna have enough funds to pay her, her fall fees, and then 10 days before we actually disperse the aid, where you'll see it as a transaction.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I think Brianna had another one on top of the middle class scholarship. She's asking about enrollment. Does that happen automatically, or by the university, or does she have?
That's a good question. So basically, CSAC would report who is eligible for it to our school, to our office, and then we add it. So you don't have to do anything on your end. They'll report who's eligible for a middle class scholarship for this incoming academic year.
I'll have Melissa's email available to you on the website on Gacho Space. So you can write it down and I contact her if need be.
Yeah. I do have a loan question, and I love these, so I'm going to go ahead and answer it. Someone asked, do the subsidized loans or any loan in general only apply for school fees, or can one use the loan for external payments like rent, food, etc.? So this is a good question, right? So all loans first pay your Bark balance. So if, let's say, all your fall fees are paid if you're eligible for grants and scholarships, and your loan is just like an extra amount that's being dispersed, this would be refunded to you. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. When it gets refunded to you, you can use that money for personal expenses like rent, food, etc. So if you're going to have, maybe you have grants, pays all your fall fees, now you're accepting loans to get that amount refunded, you can see how much, you're going to use in rent and food to know how much to accept.
Loans. We had a conversation Tuesday. So you did the presentation for the other class.
Yeah.
In this class, we had a little breakout room session where we talked about some general financial aid terms. So it's really good that you came in and kind of gave some light to some of the
Right.
specifics that we probably didn't address last time, but we have been discussing it this week. So
Oh, awesome.
it might just be that they've received quite a bit of information too.
I'm glad.
Does anyone have any final questions for Melissa? All righty.
Yeah. Oh, just really quick, sorry.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know if this was already covered or if anybody else is having you know, these questions, but for example, when I go on my award letter and you know how it gives you a breakdown. So for example, you're gonna need I believe it's like 14,000 for dorming and other expenses. So because we're currently not doing that for the fall semester, when will we know how much we'll actually need because we're not doing that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we are getting this a lot from students. So you're going to have direct costs, right? And that's what I was mentioning earlier about tuition, campus-based fees, and if you have the health insurance at UCSB. So you should know what your fees are going to be if you log into your BARC account. They should be on there already. So you'll see, since you're not going to be living on campus, that you're not going to have a charge for housing. So that's what you should base it on. What you're seeing in your award letter is basically a breakdown for the cost of attendance for a whole academic year, assuming that you're either going to live on campus or off campus, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean those are going to be your costs for the whole year. It's just kind of a breakdown so you can see how we budget you for the year, right? How we estimate the expenses you might have. Your direct costs are only right now, since you're going to be living off campus, tuition, campus-based fees, and healthcare insurance.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Let me check the chat quick.
Yeah.
Well, don't think we have any questions in the chat anymore for you. So last chance. And if not, we can always, you can always, I should say, because I'm no longer a student,
Yeah.
but you can always contact Melissa or any of the other advisors from the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships to help you out with any of the needs that you have. Just keep communicating and reaching out, because as your situation changes, you know, the financial aid office is there to help you throughout the year. So even though you get offered one financial aid award letter, right, as you mentioned, this situation could change financially for your family, for yourself. We're in a pandemic, so we never know what's right around the corner, right? And so if you can just prepare, and as you said, you always have the options to give back what you might over prepare for, right? But little things like knowing the different community resources and how they're linked, right? Like the AS food bank or community food banks. Once you live out here locally, there's a couple elementary schools where you can obtain once a month boxes of food, vegetables, fruits, frozen protein, bread, milk. They provide all of this for you once a month, right? And every month the variety changes as the season progresses. But this is all an opportunity for you to find resources locally to help drive down some of those costs. And so, you know, again, Melissa, you've done a great job of helping inform our students to draw these connections across some of those resources that we have, because I feel like that's one of the greatest tools that they can obtain, right? Is figuring out how everything works together rather than like this is only here, they only work there.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mario, for that. Yeah. And it's true, you know, when I was a first year, I didn't know that I had all this help and resources, and I didn't reach out. It wasn't until, you know, my third year and fourth year where I started realizing that so many departments are there to help you and support you. If it's, you know, housing, food insecurity, there are so many resources. So my advice is, you know, take advantage of these resources. Everyone is here to help you. And, you know, now that you mentioned the pandemic, I'll just throw this up in this presentation, but if your families are experiencing financial situation that's differed from 2018, which is what your financial applications are based from, we do have appeals, right? So this is where you contact our office, let us know, hey, my parent has lost a job, my parents are going through this, like my situation has changed. We'll talk to you about expected family contribution appeals. Again, everyone's situation is very different, but we're here to assist you and serve students.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
Yeah,
We
thank you,
appreciate
Mario. Bye, everyone. Hope to hear from you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you know what? There's one last question here about food banks. I'm gonna post the AES Food Banks website on Gaucho Space, and then I'll upload it to the resources list that we have on there as well. I'm not sure if it's already there, but if it's not, I'll update it to include. But yes, there's a few links that you can find as long as you type in AES Food Bank, UCSB. It'll get you to the search that you need from Google. Cool. Alrighty. Oh, thank you. There's the link, food.ucsb.edu. Alrighty. So for those of you still here, you all have a good weekend. I'll be in communication soon about the videos, but stay safe. Make sure you keep those masks on, social distance, right? See you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.